At the airport, as she was leaving, the CEO's kids cried. He stopped her and said, "Will you be the mother of my kids?" Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. Today my heart is full because we just reached 20,000 followers, and it's all because of you. You made this possible. Your love, your time, your faith in me. I am nothing without you. This milestone is not mine alone. It's ours. If you're here right now, please comment, "I'm here," and like this video. Let me know my family is still walking beside me. You are my greatest gift. I don't take your presence for granted. Not for one moment. You've helped me rise, and I will spend every story giving you back that love 10 times over. Here's my prayer for the hearts that brought me this far. May your life overflow with blessings too big to count. May your family know peace, your heart feel joy, and your days be wrapped in warmth. May the love you give return to you multiplied. You are my miracle. You are my treasure. You are forever loved. Let's begin, stronger, prouder, and more united than ever before. The antiseptic smell of the hospital room couldn't mask the lingering scent of Sarah's favorite jasmine perfume. John Horton clutched his wife's hand, her fingers growing colder with each passing second. The machines beeped in a rhythm that seemed to slow with her fading heartbeat. Outside the window, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. Sarah's favorite time of day. "Promise me," Sarah whispered, her once vibrant voice now barely audible. Her golden hair lay damp against the pillow, her blue eyes still radiant despite the pain. "Promise me you'll find love again, John." John shook his head, tears streaming, unchecked down his face. At 35, the successful CEO had conquered the business world, but here in this sterile room, he was powerless. "Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. We'll take the twins home tomorrow and—" "John!" Sarah squeezed his hand with surprising strength. "Listen to me. Our babies need a mother's love. Don't let them grow up without that. Don't let them grow up seeing only half of you alive." In the adjacent room, their newborn twins, barely 3 hours old, were being cleaned and checked by nurses. A boy and a girl, Ethan and Emily, perfect in every way, except for the complication that had robbed their mother of her strength. "I can't," John choked out. "I'll never love anyone the way I love you." Sarah's lips curved into a gentle smile. "Not the same way, a different way, a new way." She took a shuddering breath. "Remember how we met? You spilled coffee all over my economics textbook." John nodded, his mind flashing back to that rainy morning in college. Sarah, soaked from the downpour, laughing instead of being angry at his clumsiness. The way the fluorescent lights of the campus cafe had created a halo around her golden hair. How he'd known in that instant that she was his future. "And Paris," she continued, her voice fading, "the way you proposed at sunrise under the Eiffel Tower. You made me redo it because I was so nervous I forgot half my speech," John said, trying to smile through his tears. "The day we found out about the twins," Sarah whispered. "You cried more than I did." John pressed his forehead against their joined hands. "You're my everything, Sarah, my whole heart." "No," she said firmly, using the last of her strength to place her hand against his chest. "Not your whole heart, just your first heart. There's room for more love, John. Promise me you'll open yourself to it when it comes." The machines began to alarm as her vitals dropped. Doctors rushed in, but Sarah's eyes never left John's. "Promise me," she insisted. "I promise." John whispered, "I promise." Her last breath carried the faintest smile. As the doctors called her, "Time of death," John collapsed at her bedside, a guttural cry tearing from his throat. It was a sound so primal, so filled with anguish, that the nurses outside the room held their own children tighter that night when they went home. 3 hours. Later, John sat in a rocking chair in the hospital nursery, a tiny bundle cradled in each arm. Ethan and Emily Horton, unaware that they had entered the world at the exact moment their mother had left it. The nurse had tried to take them to the nursery, but John couldn't bear to let them out of his sight. These tiny creatures were all he had left of Sarah now. "I don't know how to do this without her," he whispered to his sleeping children. "She was supposed to be here. She had your names picked out since the day we found out you were coming. She painted your nursery herself, yellow because she didn't want to know if you were boys or girls or one of each. She wanted to be surprised." Emily's tiny hand escaped the blanket, her fingers wrapping instinctively around John's pinky. Something broke open inside him all over again. "Your mother was the best person I've ever known," he told them, his tears falling onto their blankets. "She loved you so much already. She used to play classical music for you every night. She said you danced inside her when Beethoven played." Ethan stirred in his sleep, his face scrunching up in an expression so reminiscent of Sarah that John gasped. "I'll love you enough for both of us," he promised. "I'll tell you about her every day, how brave she was, how kind, how she could light up a room just by walking into it." The night deepened outside the hospital windows as John rocked his children, whispering memories of their mother into their newborn ears, as if he could somehow imprint Sarah's love into their hearts before they ever knew the shape of loss. The funeral was a blur. John stood stoic in his black suit, the twins in the care of his sister Vanessa for the day. He accepted condolences mechanically, nodding at appropriate intervals, shaking hands that he didn't feel. His parents, Robert and Eleanor Horton, managed the guests with practiced precision, their grief contained in the tight lines around their eyes. "John should take some time away," he overheard his mother telling someone. "We've suggested he bring the babies to our home in Connecticut. He can't possibly manage them and the company." John turned away. He knew his parents meant well, but the thought of leaving the home he'd built with Sarah was unbearable. Every corner held a memory: her reading nook by the bay window, the kitchen where she'd dance while cooking Sunday breakfast, the garden she'd planted with herbs and flowers that filled the air with fragrance all summer long. That night, after everyone had gone, John sat in the nursery Sarah had so lovingly prepared. 2 identical cribs with mobile stars turning slowly. Overhead, a mural of a night sky that Sarah had painted herself. Constellations forming the shapes of lions and bears and heroes. The twins slept peacefully, unaware of the seismic shift in their tiny universe. John picked up the baby book Sarah had been keeping during her pregnancy, running his fingers over her handwriting. Week 28. "The twins are so active today." I felt a foot, an actual tiny foot, press against my hand. John talks to them every night now. I think they recognize his voice because they always settle down when he reads to them. John closed the book, unable to bear any more. He looked down at his sleeping children, so perfect, so innocent. Tomorrow he would need to interview nannies. He would need to figure out how to be both father and mother. He would need to learn how to live in a world without Sarah. But tonight, he simply pulled the rocking chair between their cribs and kept watch, his hand resting on each little bed, forming a bridge between his children, the only future he had left. "I don't know how," he whispered into the darkness, "but I'll find a way to give you everything she would have. I promise." Somewhere in the quiet house, a clock ticked forward, marking the first of many nights without Sarah. The first night of John's journey to fulfill a deathbed promise he wasn't sure he could ever keep. Chapter 2. Warmth in the Cold Mansion. 1 year after Sarah's death, the Horton mansion stood as a beautiful but hollow shell of what once was a vibrant home. Though immaculately maintained, the house had lost its soul. Fresh flowers no longer brightened the entryway. The kitchen rarely filled with the sense of home-cooked meals. Music, once a constant companion in every room, had fallen silent. Even the gardens Sarah had lovingly tended now relied on hired hands who couldn't possibly know that the roses needed to be spoken to each morning, as Sarah had always done. John Horton moved through his days like a ghost in his own life. At work, he was still the formidable CEO, making decisions with precision and authority, but employees whispered about the change in him, how the light had gone from his eyes, how he never joined them for after-work gatherings anymore, how his office door remained closed except for scheduled meetings. At home, he poured every remaining ounce of his energy into the twins. Now 1-year-old, Ethan and Emily were growing reminders of what he'd lost. Emily had Sarah's golden curls and dimpled smile. Ethan had her thoughtful gaze and the same little crease between his eyebrows when he concentrated on something. John had managed with a rotation of nannies, none lasting more than a few months. Some found him too demanding, others couldn't handle the twins' increasing needs, and a few were simply not a good fit for a household draped in quiet grief. "You need someone permanent," Vanessa urged during her weekly visit. She watched as John attempted to feed Emily, who was stubbornly refusing the spoon. "The twins need stability. You've gone through 4 nannies in a year." "5, John corrected, wiping pureed carrots from his expensive shirt. "And none of them were right," Vanessa sighed, easily getting Ethan to take his bottle. "That's because you're comparing them all to Sarah." "That's not fair," John protested, though he knew there was truth in her words. "The twins haven't bonded with anyone, John. They're quiet for their age. Pediatric development books say they should be babbling more, trying to say words." John looked at his children. It was true. Emily and Ethan rarely made sounds beyond crying when they needed something. They didn't laugh the way other babies did. They watched the world with solemn eyes, as if they too felt the absence at the center of their home. "I found someone," Vanessa said cautiously. "She comes highly recommended by Margaret Thompson, my friend who runs the International Aid Foundation. This woman worked in their Jamaica office, caring for the founder's children. She's looking for a position in the States to send money home to her family." John frowned. "I don't know, V. Another temporary solution." "Just meet her," Vanessa pressed. "She's different. There's something special about her." Kelly Spina arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning, carrying a single suitcase and a worn leather purse. Standing on the doorstep of the imposing Horton mansion, she took a deep breath before ringing the bell. At 26, Kelly had already seen more hardship than most people twice her age. The eldest of 5 siblings, she had put her own dreams of becoming a teacher on hold to help support her family after her father's death 3 years earlier. The heavy oak door swung open to reveal a tall, broad-shouldered man with dark hair and eyes that held a sadness so profound it nearly took Kelly's breath away. John Horton looked nothing like the confident CEO from the company photos she'd seen online. Up close, he was a man carved by grief, his handsome features sharpened by loss. "Mr. Horton," Kelly said, extending her hand. "I'm Kelly Spina. Your sister arranged for me to meet you about the position." John hesitated before taking her hand. "Please come in. The twins are having their morning snack." Kelly followed him through the grand entryway, noting the beautiful architecture and artwork that adorned the walls. Yet for all its splendor, the house felt cold, unlived in, as if it were a museum dedicated to happiness that had once existed. Here, in the kitchen, a harried-looking older woman was attempting to feed 2 children in high chairs. Both babies were refusing to eat, their little faces set in identical expressions of stubborn refusal. "Mrs. Winters has been helping out this week," John explained, "but she's leaving for her daughter's wedding tomorrow." Kelly nodded at the woman and then turned her attention to the twins. Instead of immediately approaching them, she set her purse down and began to hum softly, a Jamaican folk song her grandmother had taught her. The gentle melody filled the kitchen, and something remarkable happened. Both twins turned toward the sound, their eyes widening with interest. Kelly continued humming as she slowly approached the high chairs. "Hello, little ones," she said when the song ended. "My name is Kelly." Emily, who had been refusing food for 20 minutes, according to Mrs. Winters, reached her hands toward Kelly. "May I?" Kelly asked John, who nodded, surprise evident on his face. Kelly picked up the spoon and offered Emily another bite, still humming softly. To everyone's astonishment, Emily opened her mouth and accepted the food without protest. When Kelly turned to Ethan with the same gentle approach, he too accepted the offering. "They haven't been this cooperative in days," John said, watching in disbelief. Kelly smiled, a warm, genuine expression that transformed her face. Children respond to music. It speaks to them in a language they understand. As she continued feeding the twins, John studied her more carefully. Kelly Spiner was beautiful in an understated way. Warm brown skin, eyes the color of amber, and a crown of dark curls that she'd pulled back into a neat bun. But it wasn't her physical appearance that commanded attention. It was the gentle confidence in her movements, the natural way she engaged with the twins without trying to force their affection. After the meal, Kelly cleaned the twins' faces with such tender care that John felt a strange tightness in his chest. When was the last time he'd seen his children treated with such natural affection? The nannies had been professional, efficient, but none had shown this innate understanding of what his babies needed. "Would you like to see the rest of the house?" John asked, already knowing he was going to hire her. That evening, after reviewing Kelly's references and discussing terms, John offered her the position. Kelly accepted, asking only if she could have a photo of the twins to send to her mother. "She likes to know the children I care for," Kelly explained. "She says it helps her pray for them properly." John found himself smiling at this, the first genuine smile in longer than he could remember. That's nice, of course you can." After Kelly left to retrieve her belongings from her temporary accommodation, John wandered into the twins' nursery. They were already asleep in their cribs, their tiny chests rising and falling in perfect synchronicity. "Something happened today," he whispered to them. "You both smiled. I'd almost forgotten what that looked like." Later that night, John found himself standing before Sarah's photograph in the bedroom they had shared. Her smile beamed back at him, frozen in time at their last anniversary dinner, 6 months before she died. "There's someone new in the house," he told her, feeling both foolish and comforted by the one-sided conversation. The twins responded to her. Emily actually reached out her arms, "Sarah. I haven't seen her do that for anyone but me." He traced Sarah's face through the glass. "I miss you, every day, every hour. The twins look more like you each day. Emily has your smile. I saw it today for the first time in months." Tears slid down his face, but they weren't the debilitating sobs that had characterized his first months of grief. These were quieter, tempered by the small spark of hope he'd felt watching Kelly with his children. "I'm trying to keep my promise," he whispered. "I'm trying to give them all the love they deserve. But sometimes it feels impossible without you here." The photograph offered no answers, just Sarah's eternal smile, encouraging him, as she always had in life. Kelly moved into the guest suite the next day, bringing a splash of color to the muted household. Her room quickly transformed with photographs of her family, a hand-knit blanket from her grandmother, and a small potted plant she placed on the windowsill. "It needs a little life," she explained when John questioned the changes. "Plants remind us to grow toward the light." Within days, subtle changes began to appear throughout the mansion. The kitchen started to fill with the scents of Kelly's cooking, some familiar American dishes, but also Jamaican specialties that filled the house with exotic aromas. She sang while she worked, her voice carrying through the hallways like a gentle breeze. Most significantly, the twins began to change. Kelly had a way of engaging them that brought forth reactions John hadn't seen since Sarah died. She created games that made them giggle, read stories with animated voices, and always there was music. One evening, a week after Kelly's arrival, John came home early from work to find her dancing around the living room with Emily in her arms while Ethan bounced in rhythm from his playpen. The sound that stopped John in the doorway wasn't the music, it was laughter. His children were laughing. Kelly spotted him and paused, suddenly self-conscious. "Mr. Horton, I didn't expect you home so early." "Please don't stop," John said, his voice rougher than he intended. "They're happy." Kelly's expression softened. "Children need joy, Mr. Horton. It's as essential as food and sleep." "John," he said. "Please call me John." That night, after the twins were asleep, John sat on the patio overlooking Sarah's garden. The sound of the door sliding open made him turn. Kelly stood hesitantly at the threshold, holding 2 mugs. "I made tea," she said. "I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all." John gestured to the chair beside him. "Please join me." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the night air filled with the scent of Sarah's roses. Finally, John spoke. "I want to thank you, Kelly. The twins, they're different since you arrived, more alive." Kelly sipped her tea. "They're wonderful children. They just needed to remember how to be children." She paused, then added gently, "There's a saying in Jamaica. The sun must follow the rain. Even after the darkest storms, light returns." John studied her in the dim patio lighting. "How did you become so wise?" Kelly smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Life teaches hard lessons sometimes. My father died 3 years ago, leaving my mother with 5 children to raise. As the eldest, I had to become strong for them." "Is that why you came to America?" "To support them?" She nodded. "My mother is unwell, diabetes. The medicine is expensive. What I earn here goes much further there." From her purse, she withdrew a photograph and handed it to John. A woman with Kelly's same warm eyes sat surrounded by 4 younger children, all bearing Kelly's smile. "My family," she said simply. "They're my heart." John understood then. This woman knew loss too. Different from his, but loss nonetheless. Perhaps that was why the twins responded to her. Perhaps grief recognized grief, just as love recognized love. "Emily smiled today," Kelly said, changing the subject. "When the sunlight hit her face through the window, she smiled just like the photo of your wife in the hallway." John felt the familiar ache, but it was accompanied by something else. Gratitude that someone else had noticed the resemblance, that someone else was helping to keep Sarah's memory alive in their children. "Sarah," he said, her name feeling both painful and precious on his lips. Her name was Sarah. "Sarah," Kelly repeated softly. "A beautiful name. The twins have her spirit, I think, especially in their eyes." They talked until the tea grew cold, about the twins, about Jamaica, about small, safe things that didn't delve too deeply into the pain both carried. When Kelly finally rose to leave, John felt lighter than he had in months. That night, for the first time since Sarah's death, the Horton mansion didn't feel quite so empty. Somewhere in the quiet darkness, a tiny spark of warmth had been kindled, fragile but undeniably present, like the first brave bloom in a garden after winter's longest. Chapter 3, The Healing Touch. 3 years passed, transforming the once somber Horton mansion into a home filled with the joyful sounds of children's laughter. The twins, now 4 years old, flourished under Kelly's devoted care. Emily had grown into a spirited little girl, with golden curls that bounced when she ran, and a smile that was the mirror image of her mother's. Ethan, more reserved than his sister, had Sarah's thoughtful nature and John's determined chin, a combination that made him appear older than his years. Kelly had become the heart of their home, her warmth permeating every corner of what had once been a mausoleum to grief. The garden bloomed again under her care, as she had quietly taken over, tending Sarah's beloved roses, speaking to them each morning just as Sarah once had, a detail John had mentioned only once. But Kelly had remembered. One chilly autumn evening, John returned home from work earlier than usual. A major business deal had fallen through, and for once he hadn't had the energy to stay late strategizing a recovery plan. As he hung his coat in the entryway, the sound of Kelly's voice drifted from upstairs. Not her usual singing, but something. Softer, more intimate. Following the sound, John paused outside Emily's bedroom door, which stood slightly ajar. Inside, Kelly sat on the edge of the bed, Emily curled against her side, trembling. "The bad dream can't hurt you, little one," Kelly was saying, her Jamaican accent more pronounced in her gentle tones. "It's just your mind telling stories while you sleep." "But it was scary," Emily whimpered. "Daddy was gone too, like Mommy in heaven." John's heart constricted painfully. "Your daddy isn't going anywhere," Kelly assured her, stroking Emily's hair. "He loves you and Ethan more than anything in this whole wide world." "More than his big company?" Emily asked. "Much more," Kelly said firmly. "And you know what? Your Mommy in heaven is watching over you too. She sends angels to keep you safe." "Angels?" Emily's voice held a hint of wonder now, instead of fear. In Jamaica, my grandmother taught me that when we lose someone we love, they become our guardian. Angels, they're always near, especially when we're scared or sad. John leaned against the wall, overwhelmed by Kelly's words, by how perfectly she balanced honoring Sarah's memory while comforting his daughter. "I wish I remembered Mommy," Emily said in a small voice. "That's why your daddy tells you stories." "About her," Kelly replied, "so she'll always be part of your heart." She began to hum a gentle melody that John didn't recognize, a Jamaican lullaby she often sang to the twins. As her humming transformed into singing, John closed his eyes, letting the words wash over him. Kelly's voice was rich and soothing, the patois of her homeland, carrying emotions that transcended language. Emily's little voice eventually joined in on parts she'd learned, their voices twining together in the darkness. When the song ended, John heard rustling as Kelly tucked Emily in again. "Kelly?" Emily's voice was drowsy now. "Yes, sweet girl? I love you." There was a brief pause, and when Kelly spoke again, her voice held a thickness that suggested tears. "I love you too, Emily. So very much." John silently retreated from the doorway, not wanting to intrude on the moment. Something shifted in his chest, an ache that had been with him so long he'd stopped noticing it, suddenly eased, just slightly. His daughter was loved. Sarah would have wanted that so desperately. A week later, disaster struck. Ethan woke in the middle of the night, burning with fever, his little body racked with chills. The pediatrician diagnosed pneumonia and recommended immediate hospitalization, but Ethan became so hysterical at the suggestion of being separated from his family that the doctor reluctantly agreed to home treatment, with the understanding that if his condition worsened at all, they would go straight to the hospital. For 3 days and nights, Kelly barely left Ethan's side. She administered his medication, coaxed him to drink fluids, placed cool compresses on his forehead, and monitored his breathing with vigilance that impressed even the visiting nurse. When his fever spiked dangerously on the second night, she sat in the steam-filled bathroom with him for hours, holding his small body against her chest as the humidifier worked to ease his labored breathing. John took time off work, cancelling meetings regardless of their importance. He and Kelly worked in shifts, but even when it wasn't her turn to watch Ethan, John would find her sleeping on the window seat in Ethan's room, unwilling to be far from him. On the third night, John entered Ethan's room at midnight to relieve Kelly, only to find her rocking his son gently, her lips moving in silent prayer. Ethan's breathing, which had been harsh and labored, seemed easier. his sleep more natural than it had been since he fell ill. "You should rest," John whispered. "I can take over." Kelly looked up, dark shadows beneath her eyes revealing her exhaustion. "His fever's breaking," she said with quiet joy. "Feel his forehead." John placed his palm gently on his son's brow. The burning heat of the past days had subsided to a mild warmth. Relief flooded through him so intensely that he had to brace himself against the wall. "You saved him," he said, his voice cracking. Kelly shook her head. "Prayer saved him. And his own. Strength. He's a fighter like his father. And his mother," John added softly. "Sarah fought so hard to stay with us." Kelly nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I've been talking to her," she admitted, "these past nights, asking her to help her son." Instead of finding this strange, John felt a profound gratitude. While his own faith had faltered after Sarah's death, Kelly's remained unshakable. She had petitioned Sarah as naturally as if his late wife were just in the next room, not separated by the veil between life and death. "Thank you," John said, the words entirely inadequate for what he felt. Kelly carefully transferred the sleeping Ethan to his arms. As she did, her hand brushed against John's, and for a breathless moment they were connected. Three souls linked by touch, by care, by something deeper than any of them could name. The crisis with Ethan created a subtle shift in the household. John found himself lingering over breakfast rather than rushing to the office, treasuring the morning routine Kelly had established. He began coming home in time for dinner more often than not, drawn by the warmth of family meals where the twins chattered about their day and Kelly listened with genuine interest. One sunny afternoon, John arrived home early to find Kelly and the twins in the backyard. Emily was helping Kelly plant spring bulbs in Sarah's garden, her small hands covered in dirt as she carefully placed each bulb in the holes Kelly had dug. Ethan, fully recovered from his illness, was mowing the lawn with his toy lawnmower, following the straight lines of the gardener with intense concentration. John stood watching them, struck by the tableau they created, not a replacement for the family he had lost, but something new that had grown in the fertile soil of grief and healing. As if sensing his presence, Kelly looked up, shielding her eyes against the sun. When she saw him, her face brightened with a smile that sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. "Daddy!" Emily spotted him and came running, her dirty hands leaving prints on his suit as she hugged him. Once, he would have been bothered by the mess. Now, he simply lifted her into his arms, accepting the soil as a badge of her affection. "We're planting tulips," she informed him seriously. "Kelly says they're sleeping now, but in spring they'll wake up and wear pretty dresses." "Is that so?" John looked to Kelly, who approached with Ethan now by her side. "A child-friendly explanation of bulb dormancy," she said with a laugh. "Though I rather like the image of tulips in dresses myself." Ethan tugged at John's pant leg. "I've been helping too, Daddy. I cutted all the grass." John set Emily down to pick up his son. "You did an excellent job, buddy. The straightest lines I've ever seen." "Kelly said I'm a good helper," Ethan declared proudly, "just like her." "You certainly are," John agreed, his eyes meeting Kelly's over Ethan's head. "Kelly helps us all, doesn't she?" Something passed between them then. Acknowledgement of the roles they had fallen into, the family they had become without ever discussing it. For the first time since Sarah's death, John felt a flicker of something that wasn't just gratitude or appreciation as he looked at Kelly. It was a feeling he wasn't ready to name, wasn't sure he had the right to feel. Later that evening, Kelly found him in his study going through old photo albums. "The twins are asleep," she said, hesitating at the doorway. "Emily wants you to know she said her prayers for her mommy in heaven." John nodded, his throat tight. "Thank you for teaching them that, for helping them know Sarah, even though they never really got the chance." Kelly took a step into the room, her gaze falling on the album open in his lap. Wedding photos, Sarah radiant in white, John looking at her with unabashed adoration. "She was beautiful," Kelly said softly. "She was," John agreed. "Inside and out." He closed the album carefully. "You would have liked each other, I think. She had your kindness." Kelly smiled, though her eyes held a touch of sadness. "I'm sure I would have." She started to leave, then paused. "John." "Yes?" "I hope you—" "No, I would never try to replace her, not in your heart and not in the twins. I know," John said, seeing her struggle for words. "Sarah will always be their mother. You've made sure of that with your stories and the way you speak of her." He stood, crossing to where Kelly stood. "But you're the one who kisses their scraped knees now. The one who knows that Emily won't eat carrots unless they're cut into stars, and Ethan needs his blue blanket to fall asleep. You're the one they run to when they're scared or happy or excited about a new discovery." Tears filled Kelly's eyes. "They call me Mama Kelly sometimes," she confessed as if it were a betrayal. "I've tried to tell them, it's okay," John interrupted gently. "It's more than okay. They need that. They need you." The unspoken words hung between them. "I need you too." Kelly reached out impulsively and squeezed his hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "Good night, John." Long after she had gone, John stood in his study, looking out at the garden where soon the bulbs Kelly and Emily had planted would bloom, continuing the cycle of life, of renewal, of hope. For the first time in 4 years, he allowed himself to think of Sarah's final request, her plea for him to open his heart to love again. "I think I'm beginning to understand," he whispered to Sarah's memory. "I think I'm finally beginning to understand what you meant." Chapter 4. Heart's Awakening. Hearts. The twins' 4th birthday arrived on a perfect May morning, the kind Sarah had always cherished. John woke early, his heart heavy with the bittersweet awareness that another milestone would pass without her. 4 years. 4 years since he had held her hand as she slipped away, since he had made that promise he was only now beginning to understand might be possible to keep. He made his way downstairs, expecting to find Kelly already preparing for the day. Instead, the kitchen was empty, though the coffee was brewed. Following the sound of movement, John stepped onto the back patio and stopped, his breath catching in his throat. Kelly stood in Sarah's garden, the early morning light gilding her skin with a golden glow. She was placing candles around the stone bench, Sarah's favorite spot to sit and read in the evenings. 4 candles, John realized, 1 for each year since Sarah had died, 1 for each year of the twins' lives. As if sensing his presence, Kelly turned. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw him standing there. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I should have asked before—" "No," John interrupted, moving closer. "What are you doing?" Kelly looked down at the candles, uncertainty crossing her features. "In Jamaica, we believe the dead are still with us on important days. I thought—" She hesitated, then continued with quiet determination. "I thought Sarah should be part of today's celebration, that the twins should know their mother is present for their birthday, even if they can't see her." John stood speechless, overwhelmed by her thoughtfulness, by her intuitive understanding of what this day meant. Not just a birthday, but the anniversary of the most profound loss and gift of his life. "I can remove them if you'd rather not." "Leave them," John said, his voice rough with emotion. "Sarah would love it. She always said a garden should have candles." Kelly smiled, relief softening her features. "The twins are still sleeping. I was going to wake them with birthday songs at 7, as we discussed." John nodded, then impulsively stepped forward and took her hand. "Thank you, Kelly. Not just for this, but for everything. These past 3 years, you've brought life back into this home when I thought it was gone forever." Her fingers tightened around his briefly before she pulled away, a flush darkening her cheeks. "The twins make it easy to give love," she said softly, "and so do you, John." Before he could respond, she turned and headed back to the house. "I should start breakfast. Birthday pancakes with strawberry faces, as requested by the birthday girl." And boy, John remained in the garden for a long moment, watching the gentle flame of the candles dance in the morning breeze. For the first time, standing there among Sarah's beloved flowers, the weight of grief felt lighter, as if it had transformed from a crushing burden into something he could carry within a heart that was impossibly beginning to heal. The birthday celebration was everything the twins could have wished for. Kelly had transformed the backyard into a wonderland of balloons and streamers, with a small table set up for the twins' friends from preschool. She had baked a cake shaped like a castle, complete with ice cream cone turrets and a moat of blue. "Jelly!" John watched in amazement as Kelly orchestrated games, served food, and made each child feel special, all while keeping an eye on the twins to ensure they were enjoying their day. His parents, Robert and Eleanor, had sent lavish gifts but declined to attend, still uncomfortable with the family dynamic that had evolved. His sister Vanessa, however, came with armfuls of presents and a warm embrace for Kelly. "You've worked miracles here," Vanessa whispered to John as they watched Kelly lead the children in a game of musical statues. "I hardly recognize my niece and nephew, or you for that matter." John smiled, his eyes never leaving the scene before him. "She's remarkable with them, just with them." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. John shot her a warning look. "Don't start, V." "What?" she said innocently. "I'm just saying what anyone with eyes can see. That woman loves those children like they're her own, and the way she looks at you when she thinks no one is watching—" "Drop it," John said firmly, though his heart had begun to beat faster. "Kelly is the twins' nanny, an exceptional one, but that's all." Vanessa sighed. "You're impossible, Johnny. Sarah wouldn't want—" "Don't," he cut her off. "Don't tell me what Sarah would want." Vanessa held up her hands in surrender. "Fine, I'll butt out, but just remember, little brother, life is for the living." As the party wound down, and the last of the little guests were collected by their parents, John found himself helping Kelly clean up while the twins explored their new toys under Vanessa's supervision. "You outdid yourself," he told her, gathering discarded wrapping paper. "I don't know how you managed all this and kept it a surprise." Kelly smiled, fatigue evident in the slight slump of her shoulders, despite her cheerful expression. It was worth every second to see their faces. Emily's eyes when she saw the cake, pure magic, and Ethan actually participated in the games instead of watching from the sidelines. "That's all you, Kelly," she shook her head. "He's coming out of his shell naturally. He's so much like you, thoughtful, observing everything before deciding to join in." John paused in his cleaning. "You think I'm like that?" "Absolutely." Kelly laughed. "You watch, you analyze, you plan. Ethan does the same thing, just with blocks and puzzles instead of business deals." The casual observation struck John. Kelly saw him, really saw him, in a way few people ever had, except Sarah. She noticed things about him and his children that even he sometimes missed. As they finished cleaning, Kelly reached for a large garbage bag at the same moment John did. Their hands collided, fingers brushing together. Unlike the brief, accidental touches they'd shared before, neither of them immediately pulled away. For one breathless moment they remained connected, Kelly's slender fingers beneath John's broader ones, warmth passing between them. John looked up, finding Kelly's amber eyes wide with an emotion he couldn't name. His gaze dropped to her lips, slightly parted in surprise, and for a wild, disorienting second, he imagined leaning forward to taste them. The sound of Ethan calling for Kelly broke the spell. She withdrew her hand quickly, a flush spreading across her cheeks. I should see what he needs, she said, her voice uncharacteristically flustered. John nodded, his own heart racing as if he'd run a marathon. What had just happened? What had he almost done? That evening, after the twins had finally fallen asleep surrounded by new toys, Kelly organized a small private celebration. She carried a beautiful cake into the dining room, where John waited, puzzled by her request that he stay up for one more surprise. "What's this?" he asked as she set the cake before him. It was simple but elegant, decorated with buttercream roses that looked remarkably like the ones in Sarah's garden. "A birthday cake for Sarah," Kelly said softly. I thought we could sing to her, just the three of us. The twins helped me make it this morning, before you woke up. I saved it for after they were asleep, so you wouldn't have to pretend to be strong," John finished for her, emotion clogging his throat. Kelly nodded. "They know today is their mommy's birthday too, the day she went to heaven. Emily asked if we could send a cake to heaven, and I told her we would share it here, and Sarah would know." John stared at the cake, unable to speak past the knot in his throat. Each year on this day, he had secluded himself after the twins were asleep, unwilling to share the depths of his grief. Yet, here was Kelly, acknowledging not just his children's loss, but his own, creating space for remembrance rather than just mourning. "I put 4 candles for the years, since she's been gone, and one in the center for her spirit that's still with you all," Kelly explained, lighting the candles with a long match. In the flickering glow, John could see that Kelly's hands trembled, slightly. She was nervous, he realized, afraid she had overstepped, that she had intruded on his private grief. "Kelly," he said, reaching for her hand. I don't have words for what this means to me." Relief softened her features. "Would you like to sing, or just have a moment of silence?" "Let's sing," John decided. Sarah loved music, especially off-key singing. He smiled at the memory. She couldn't carry a tune to save her life, but that never stopped her. Together, they sang Happy Birthday softly, their voices blending. In the quiet house, when the last note faded, John closed his eyes and made a silent wish before blowing out the candles. "Thank you for sending her to us, Sarah. Thank you for making sure we weren't alone." As Kelly cut the cake, placing a slice before him, John was struck by how naturally she had woven Sarah into their lives instead of trying to erase her memory. There was no jealousy, no competition, just a generous spirit that understood love wasn't diminished by being shared, only multiplied. "Try it," Kelly encouraged. "Emily insisted on adding extra vanilla because she heard you tell her once that it was her mother's favorite flavor." John took a bite and closed his eyes, momentarily transported. "It's perfect," he said when he could speak again. "It tastes like home." Kelly's smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "I'm glad." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the simple ritual of sharing food somehow sacred in the quiet house. "Tell me something about Sarah that the twins don't know yet," Kelly said eventually. "Something you're saving for when they're older." John considered the request, touched by Kelly's continuing effort to keep Sarah's memory alive. "She was terrified of spiders," he said with a small laugh. "Absolutely petrified. This successful businesswoman who could face down boardrooms of hostile executives would stand on a chair screaming if she saw even a tiny one." Kelly laughed, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Emily's the same. Remember last week when she found one in the bathtub?" screamed the house down, John recalled, smiling at the memory. Definitely her mother's daughter. They traded stories as they finished their cake. John sharing memories of Sarah, Kelly offering observations about how the twins carried their mother's traits. It was the most John had ever spoken about Sarah without feeling like his heart was being torn open anew. Instead, each story felt like a gift he was passing on, preserving pieces of Sarah through shared memories. When the cake was finished and the plates cleared away, They found themselves standing close together in the kitchen. The house was silent, except for the distant ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway and the soft hum of the refrigerator. "Thank you," John said simply, the words inadequate for the depth of his gratitude. Kelly looked up at him, her amber eyes reflecting the warm kitchen light. "You don't need to thank me, John. Your family, the twins." She hesitated, then continued softly, "Being here with all of you feels like a gift I don't deserve." "You deserve every happiness, Kelly," John said, suddenly needing her to understand how much she had changed their lives. "What you've done for my children, for me, I can never repay." "It was never about repayment," Kelly said, her voice barely above a whisper. She was standing so close now that John could smell the light jasmine of her perfume, could see the faint freckles dusting her cheekbones. John's hand moved of its own accord, reaching up to tuck a stray curl behind her ear. Kelly's breath caught, but she didn't pull away. His fingers lingered against her cheek, warm and soft beneath his touch. Time seemed suspended as they stood there, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings. John felt himself leaning closer, drawn by something more powerful than thought or reason. Kelly's eyes drifted closed, her lips parting slightly in anticipation. The sudden wail of Emily's voice over the baby monitor shattered the moment. "Mama Kelly, I had a bad dream." Kelly stepped back immediately, the spell broken. "I should go to her," she said, not meeting John's eyes. "Kelly," John began, not sure what he wanted to say, only knowing he couldn't leave this moment unacknowledged. She paused at the doorway, finally looking back at him. "It's okay, John," she said softly. "We don't have to talk about it. Good night." As she disappeared up the stairs, John remained in the kitchen, his heart pounding with the awareness of what had almost happened, and the realization that, for the first time since Sarah's death, he had wanted to kiss a woman and felt no guilt in the wanting. Upstairs, he could hear Kelly's soothing voice as she comforted Emily. The same gentle tone she used with both twins, with the same boundless love that had transformed their broken family. "Sarah," he whispered to the empty kitchen, "I think I'm finally ready to keep my promise." Chapter 5. Family Wounds. The annual Horton family dinner had been a tradition since before John was born. Held at his parents' sprawling Connecticut estate, each summer it was an occasion his mother Eleanor treated with the gravity of a diplomatic summit. Attendance was mandatory, dress was formal, and conversations were to remain pleasant, regardless of underlying tensions. In the years since Sarah's death, John had attended with the twins, but left early, using their bedtime as an excuse to escape the suffocating sympathy and thinly veiled suggestions about moving forward appropriately. This year, however, felt different. The twins were older now, excited to see their grandparents' estate with its swimming pool and elaborate gardens, and for the first time, Kelly would be joining them. A decision John had made, despite his mother's pointed suggestion, that the help could have the evening off. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Kelly asked as their car turned onto the long, tree-lined driveway leading to the Horton estate. She smoothed her deep blue dress nervously, a simple but elegant garment that complemented her warm brown skin. Of course it is," John reassured her, though his own stomach twisted with apprehension. "The twins would be devastated if you didn't come. Besides, it's just dinner." In the back seat, Emily and Ethan were vibrating with excitement, dressed in coordinating outfits that Kelly had carefully selected. "Will Grandma have cake?" Ethan asked, straightening the little bow tie he'd insisted on wearing because it made him look like Daddy. "I'm sure there will be dessert," Kelly answered, turning to help him fix the bow tie that had already come askew. "But remember what we talked about. Say please and thank you, and don't ask for seconds until everyone has been served." John watched the interaction in the rearview mirror, warmth spreading through his chest. In the 4 months since the twins' birthday, since that almost kiss in the kitchen, a new awareness had grown between him and Kelly. Neither had spoken of it directly, but he often caught her looking at him with an expression that made his heart race, just as he found himself creating excuses to be near her, to talk with her, to simply exist in her orbit. As they pulled up to the imposing colonial-style mansion, John's sister Vanessa emerged to greet them, her face lighting up at the sight of the twins. "There are my favorite niece and nephew," she exclaimed, opening the back doors to unbuckle the children from their car seats. "We're your only niece and nephew, Aunt Vanessa," Emily pointed out with the logical precision she'd inherited from her father. Vanessa laughed, scooping Emily into her arms. "Smartest, too." Her eyes shifted to Kelly, who was helping Ethan from his seat. "Kelly, you look beautiful. That color is stunning on you." Kelly smiled gratefully at the warm welcome. "Thank you for including me." "Of course," Vanessa said with a meaningful glance at John. "You're family now." The word hung in the air between them. Family, with all its implications and complications. Before John could respond, the front door opened, revealing Eleanor Horton in a perfectly tailored cream suit, her silver hair swept into an immaculate chignon. "There you are," she called, her smile genuine for the twins, but tightening slightly when her gaze fell on Kelly. "We were beginning to wonder if you'd be late." "Right on time, Mother," John replied, checking his watch pointedly. He placed a hand lightly on Kelly's back as they approached the house, a silent show of solidarity that didn't go unnoticed by his mother. Eleanor bent to kiss the twins, exclaiming over how much they'd grown, before straightening to address Kelly with cool politeness. "Miss Spina, how kind of you to join us. I hope you'll be comfortable." The subtle emphasis on comfortable spoke volumes, a reminder that Kelly was entering a world far removed from her own background. John felt her stiffen slightly beneath his hand. "Thank you for the invitation, Mrs. Horton," Kelly replied, with unfailing grace. "Your home is beautiful." Inside, Robert Horton greeted them in the vast foyer, his booming voice filling the space as he lifted each twin in turn, commenting on how strong Ethan was getting and how much Emily resembled Sarah, an observation that caused a momentary shadow to cross John's face. If Robert noticed Kelly at all, he gave no indication beyond a curt nod when John introduced her. The afternoon proceeded with forced pleasantness, the twins providing much-needed distraction as they explored the gardens with their grandfather and swam in the pool under Vanessa's watchful eye. John found himself constantly searching for Kelly, relieved each time he found her, worried about leaving her alone too long with his parents. She handled herself with quiet dignity, answering Eleanor's thinly veiled interrogations about her background with straightforward honesty, neither apologizing for nor embellishing her humble Jamaican upbringing. Dinner was served at precisely 7 o'clock in the formal dining room, where the table gleamed with sterling silver and Waterford crystal. The twins, despite their excitement, behaved impeccably, using their best manners under Kelly's gentle guidance. John noticed his mother watching as Emily automatically turned to Kelly for approval after using her napkin correctly, and the way Ethan whispered, "Thank you, Mama Kelly," when she cut his meat into manageable pieces. The air in the room seemed to chill noticeably at Ethan's words. Eleanor's fork paused midway to her mouth, and Robert's bushy eyebrows rose toward his hairline. "Mama Kelly?" Eleanor repeated, her tone making the affectionate name sound like an accusation. "That seems rather inappropriate, doesn't it?" John tensed, but Kelly spoke before he could. "It started when they were younger," she explained calmly. "We've explained that their real mama is in heaven, but they began calling me this on their own. We felt it was important to let them express their feelings naturally." "We felt," Robert interjected, looking at John with undisguised disapproval. "Son," Surely you can see the confusion this causes. These children have a mother, Sarah, and encouraging them to call the help mama undermines her memory. John's hand tightened around his fork. Sarah will always be their mother, he said with controlled anger. Kelly has never tried to replace her. Quite the opposite. She keeps Sarah's memory alive for the twins every day. It's hardly appropriate, Eleanor persisted. What must people think? I don't give a damn what people think, Mother, John replied, his voice low enough that the twins, now engaged in a whispered conversation of their own, wouldn't hear. Language, John, Eleanor admonished automatically. All I'm saying is that there are boundaries. Miss Spina works for you. She is an employee. Allowing the children to form such attachments will only lead to complications when she eventually leaves. Kelly's face remained composed, but John saw the flicker of hurt in her eyes before she lowered them to her plate. Kelly isn't going anywhere, John said firmly. A heavy silence fell over the table, broken only by the clink of silver against china and the twins' oblivious chatter. Vanessa, sensing the tension, engaged the children in a game of identifying the different flowers in the centerpiece. When the main course was cleared, Eleanor stood. Vanessa, why don't you take the children to the kitchen? Cook has prepared special ice cream sundaes for them. The twins cheered, all too happy to be excused. From the grown-up table, Kelly made to rise as well, but Eleanor's next words froze her in place. Miss Spina, please remain. I think it's time we had a frank discussion. Once the children were out of earshot, Eleanor wasted no time. John, your father and I have been patient. We've given you time to grieve, to find your footing as a single father. But this situation has gone far enough. What situation would that be, Mother? John asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Don't be obtuse, Eleanor snapped. Anyone with eyes can see what's happening here. You've allowed this young woman to insinuate herself into your home, into your children's affections, into my heart. John finished for her, surprising even himself with the admission. Is that what you're afraid of, Mother? That I might have feelings for Kelly? Kelly's sharp intake of breath was audible in the tense silence that followed. She stared at John, her eyes wide with shock and something else, hope, perhaps, or fear. She's not suitable, Robert said bluntly, entering the conversation. We have nothing against Miss Spina personally, but surely you can see the impropriety. She's your employee, John. She's from an entirely different background. What would Sarah think? Sarah would be grateful, John replied, a calm certainty filling him as he realized the truth of his words. Grateful that our children are loved. Grateful that they have someone in their lives who puts their happiness above everything else. Be reasonable, Eleanor pleaded, her perfect composure finally cracking. Think of your position, of the company, of the children's future. We're not being cruel. We're being practical. If you need companionship, there are plenty of suitable women we could introduce you to. Charlotte Waverley has been asking about you, and her family has connections that would benefit Horton Industries enormously. John laughed without humor. So that's what this is about? Business connections. Did you arrange a merger when you introduced me to Sarah, too? Don't be ridiculous, his father huffed. Sarah was different. She was one of us. One of us, John repeated slowly. And Kelly isn't. Because she wasn't born into wealth, because her skin is a different color, because she comes from Jamaica instead of Greenwich. You're twisting our words, Eleanor said, but her gaze slid away from his, confirming his accusations. I'm not twisting anything. I'm finally seeing clearly. John stood, throwing his napkin onto the table. Kelly has brought joy back into my home when I thought it was gone forever. She has loved my children when I was too broken to give them everything they needed. She honors Sarah's memory every single day. He turned to Kelly, who sat frozen in her chair, tears shimmering in her eyes. And yes, I have feelings for her. Feelings I've been fighting because I was afraid. Afraid of betraying Sarah, afraid of disrupting the twins' lives, afraid of exactly this reaction from my family. John, Kelly whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I'm sorry it took so long for me to say it," he told her softly before turning back to his parents. "I won't apologize for what I feel. I won't pretend Kelly is anything less than what she is, the heart of our home, the woman who saved us all." Eleanor stood, her face pale with anger. "If you pursue this infatuation, you'll regret it. The board won't look kindly on such a unconventional relationship. Your father still has considerable influence." "Are you threatening me, Mother?" John asked incredulously. "Using the company against me because you don't approve of who I care about?" "We're trying to protect you," Robert insisted, "and the twins. Think of how this will affect them, the questions they'll face." "The only question that matters is whether they're loved," John replied. "And they are, by me and by Kelly. The rest is just noise." The sound of running feet interrupted the confrontation as Emily burst back into the dining room, her face alight with excitement. "Mama Kelly! Grandma has a special dollhouse in the library that was my mommy's when she was little. Can we play with it?" All eyes turned to the little girl, who stood oblivious to the tension in the room, her gaze fixed expectantly on Kelly. In that moment, the contrast between the adult's prejudices and a child's pure acceptance couldn't have been clearer. Kelly rose from her chair, her composure regained as she focused on Emily. "Of course, sweetheart, let's go see it." As Kelly took Emily's hand and left the room, she finally met John's gaze, her eyes communicating a maelstrom of emotions, gratitude, fear, hope, and something deeper that made his heart swell. She slipped past him, her shoulder brushing his, arm in a touch that felt like both a question and a promise. When they were gone, John faced his parents again. "I don't want to fight with you. You're my family and I love you. But I need you to understand something." He paused, making sure he had their full attention. "Sarah was my first love, and part of me will always belong to her. But Kelly is my second chance, the twins' second chance. If you can't accept that, if you can't see past your prejudices to the extraordinary woman she is, then you're the ones who will be missing out." "You're making a mistake," Robert warned. "No," John said with quiet certainty. "For the first time in 4 years, I'm not." He left the dining room to find Kelly and the children, leaving his parents to contemplate the choice he had already made. In the library, he paused in the doorway, watching as Kelly knelt beside Emily at the antique dollhouse, helping her arrange tiny furniture while Ethan and Vanessa built a fort with sofa cushions nearby. Kelly looked up and saw him, uncertainty flashing across her face. He smiled, trying to convey that despite everything, he didn't regret a word he'd said. She returned his smile tentatively, a fragile hope in her expression that made him want to cross the room and take her in his arms. Instead, he joined Ethan and Vanessa, helping with the fort while keeping Kelly in his peripheral vision. They would need to talk later, away from his parents' house, away from little ears that might not understand the complexities of what was unfolding. "You okay?" Vanessa murmured as they balanced a cushion on top of their structure. John nodded. "Better than I've been in a long time, actually." His sister squeezed his arm. "About damn time, little brother. About damn time." As the evening drew to a close, and they prepared to leave, John's parents maintained a cold civility that boded ill for future family gatherings. Eleanor bent to kiss the twins goodbye, but barely acknowledged Kelly. Robert shook John's hand formally, his expression making it clear that their conversation was far from over. In the car driving home, the twins quickly fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day's emotions and activities. Silence stretched between John and Kelly until she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did you mean what you said in there? About having feelings for me?" John kept his eyes on the road, afraid that if he looked at her, he might lose the courage to be completely honest. "Yes. I've been fighting it for months. maybe longer. I didn't want to complicate things, to risk what we have. The twins need you. I need you, but not just as their nanny. Kelly was quiet for so long that John finally glanced over, worried he'd said too much. She was looking out the window, tears streaming silently down her face. "Kelly," he asked, anxiety tightening his chest. "I'm sorry if I've made you uncomfortable. We can forget I said anything. Go back to how things were." "No," she interrupted, turning to face him with eyes shining in the dim light of the car. "I don't want to go back. I've been fighting my feelings too, telling myself it was wrong, that I was betraying Sarah's memory, that I was just the nanny and had no right to love you or the twins the way I do." John's heart raced at her words. "You love us?" Kelly's smile was like sunrise after the longest night. "How could I not? You, three became my world from the moment I stepped into your home." John reached across the console to take her hand, intertwining their fingers. "We have a lot to figure out. My parents won't make this easy." "I know," Kelly acknowledged. "And the twins, they have to come first in all of this." "Always," John agreed. "We'll take it slow, make sure they're okay every step of the way." They drove in silence for a while, hands still joined, each lost in thoughts of what might lie ahead. When they reached home, John carried Ethan, while Kelly took Emily, the two adults moving in the synchronized rhythm they'd developed over years of caring for the children together. After tucking the twins into their beds, they met in the hallway, suddenly shy with each other despite the emotions they'd confessed. "Good night, John," Kelly said softly, turning toward her room. "Kelly," he called after her, his voice low enough not to wake the children. When she turned back, he crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, cupping her face gently in his hands. "I'm not afraid anymore," he whispered. And then he kissed her, a tender, questioning kiss that she answered by wrapping her arms around his neck and drawing him closer. When they finally parted, both breathless, Kelly rested her forehead against his. "Neither am I," she whispered back. They separated reluctantly, aware of the sleeping children nearby and the need to tread carefully as they navigated this new territory. But as John watched Kelly disappear into her room, closing the door softly behind her, he felt something he'd thought lost forever, the lightness of a heart opening to love again, the quiet certainty that somehow, against all odds, he was keeping his promise to Sarah after all. Chapter 6. Souls Laid Bare. In the weeks following the disastrous dinner at the Horton estate, John and Kelly moved cautiously through their changing relationship. By unspoken agreement, they kept their growing feelings confined to private moments, a lingering touch when passing in the hallway, stolen kisses after the twins were asleep, quiet conversations on the patio beneath the stars. To the outside world, nothing had changed, but within the walls of their home, everything had transformed. Kelly continued her role as nanny with the same loving devotion as always, while John made subtle adjustments to ensure no one could accuse him of taking advantage of his position. He'd instructed his accountant to increase her salary substantially, despite her protests, and made it clear to everyone from his assistant to the housekeeper that Kelly was to be treated with the utmost respect. The twins, absorbed in their 4-year-old, concerns seemed oblivious to the shift in the adults' relationship. If they noticed that Daddy smiled more often, or that Mama Kelly's cheeks flushed pink when he entered a room, they made no comment. Their world remained secure and loving, exactly as John and Kelly intended. But outside, forces were not so easily placated. A week after the confrontation, John received a call from his father. "The board wants to meet," Robert said without preamble. "Several members have expressed concern about the company's direction." John, sitting in his office overlooking Manhattan, felt his jaw tighten. "The company has never been more profitable. We've increased market share by 12% this quarter alone." "This isn't about profits," Robert replied, his tone making it clear what it was about. "It's about leadership, stability. The Horton name has always stood for traditional values." "Traditional values," John repeated flatly. "Like judging people, based on their background rather than their character?" Robert's sigh crackled through the phone line. "Don't be dramatic, John. No one's judging. We're simply concerned about appearances. If you insist on pursuing this relationship, do it discreetly. Keep it out of the public eye." "I'm not ashamed of Kelly," John said, anger rising in his chest, "and I won't hide her away like some dirty secret." "Then prepare for a fight," Robert warned. "The board meeting is next Thursday. I suggest you come ready to defend more than just your quarterly numbers." The call ended with a click, leaving John staring at the skyline, fury and determination warring within him. He'd known his parents wouldn't accept his feelings for Kelly easily, but he hadn't anticipated them using the company as leverage. Horton Industries was his legacy to the twins, the company his grandfather had built from nothing. The thought of it being used against him made his blood boil. That evening he returned home later than usual, his mind still churning with strategies for the upcoming board meeting. The house was quiet when he entered, the usual sounds of children playing, noticeably absent. "Kelly," he called, setting down his briefcase. "On the patio," her voice answered from the back of the house. John found her sitting alone, a mug of tea cradled in her hands as she watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Something in her posture, the slight hunch of her shoulders, the way she curled in on herself, set off warning bells in his mind. "Where are the twins?" he asked, taking the chair beside her. "Your sister picked them up for a movie night. They were very excited about popcorn and staying up past bedtime." Kelly's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I hope that's okay. She called this afternoon and offered." "Of course it's okay," John assured her, reaching for her hand. "Are you all right? You seem distant." Kelly stared into her mug for a long moment before speaking. "Your mother called today." John stiffened. "What did she say?" "Nothing overtly cruel," Kelly replied, finally meeting his gaze. "She was very polite. She invited me to lunch tomorrow, to clear the air," she said. "You don't have to go," John said immediately. "Whatever game she's playing—" "I told her yes," Kelly interrupted gently. "John, running away won't solve anything. If we're really going to— If this is real between us, then I need to try to build some kind of relationship with your family." John marveled at her courage, her willingness to face the disapproval and prejudice that his family represented. "It is real," he promised, squeezing her hand. "But my mother can be brutal when she wants to be. I don't want you hurt." Kelly's smile was tinged with sadness. "I've faced worse." She hesitated, then added, "There's something else. I received a letter from my mother today. She's not doing well. The diabetes is affecting her eyesight now." Concern immediately replaced John's anger. He knew how close Kelly was to her mother, how much of her salary she sent home each month to support her family. "Is there anything we can do? I could arrange for specialists, fly her here for treatment." "It's not that simple," Kelly said, shaking her head. "My mother is proud. She wouldn't accept that kind of help, especially not from—" She trailed off, looking away. "From me," John finished for her. "Because I'm white, because I'm wealthy." "Because she doesn't know you," Kelly corrected gently. "In her mind, you're still just my employer." The words hung between them, highlighting the complexity of their situation. In one world, his world, Kelly was the nanny who had stepped beyond her role. In another world, hers, he was the rich white boss who might be taking advantage of her. "We should change that," John decided. "I could go with you next time you visit Jamaica. Meet your family. Let them get to know me." Kelly's expression softened with surprise and gratitude. "You would do that?" "Of course I would," John said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Kelly, I'm falling in love with you. Meeting your family, understanding where you come from, that's important to me." The words had slipped out without planning, but John realized as soon as he said them that they were true. He was falling in love with Kelly Spiner. Perhaps had been for longer than he was ready to admit. Kelly's eyes filled with tears. "John," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I never expected this. When I came here, I was just looking for a job that would help me support my family. I never imagined—" "Neither did I," John admitted, moving his chair closer to hers. "After Sarah died, I thought that part of my life was over. I couldn't imagine loving anyone else. But you didn't replace her. You helped me heal enough to find room in my heart again." A single tear slipped down Kelly's cheek. John reached up to brush it away, his thumb lingering on the softness of her skin. "I'm falling in love with you too," she confessed, "and it terrifies me." "Why?" John asked, though he thought he knew the answer. "Because of the twins," Kelly said, confirming his suspicion. "They've already lost one mother. If this doesn't work, if your family tears us apart, or if my mother needs me back in Jamaica, I couldn't bear to hurt them again." The fear she voiced was the same one that had kept John awake at night, the same one that made him proceed with such caution despite the strength of his feelings. The twins had to come first, always. "We'll be careful," he promised. "We'll take things slowly. Make sure they understand that no matter what happens between us, you will always be in their lives." Kelly nodded, though doubt still shadowed her eyes. "And your family, the company? John, I heard you arguing on the phone earlier. I know they're using Horton Industries against you." John sighed, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "The board is meeting next week. My father has implied that my personal life might become an issue." "Because of me," Kelly said softly. "Because they're stuck in the past," John corrected firmly. "The company will be fine. I've prepared for this kind of challenge." Before Kelly could respond, the sky opened up without warning, a summer thunderstorm sending rain cascading onto the patio. They jumped up, Kelly grabbing her mug as John quickly folded the cushions, both of them laughing as they darted inside, already half soaked from the sudden downpour. In the kitchen, John handed Kelly a dish towel to dry her face. Their laughter faded as they stood close together, the sound of rain drumming against the windows, creating a cocoon of intimacy around them. "You're soaked," Kelly observed, reaching up to brush wet hair from John's forehead. "So are you," he replied, his gaze tracing the way her damp shirt clung to her curves. He swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of how alone they were in the house. Kelly seemed to read his thoughts, a blush coloring her cheeks as she stepped back slightly. "I should change," she murmured. John nodded, respecting the boundary she was setting. "Me too. Maybe after we could watch a movie, take advantage of the kid-free evening." Kelly's smile returned. "I'd like that." An hour later, they sat on opposite ends of the sofa, a bowl of popcorn between them, some romantic comedy playing on the television that neither was really watching. Outside, the storm had intensified, rain lashing against the windows while thunder rumbled in the distance. "Your mother will likely try to convince you tomorrow that I'm not good for the twins," John said suddenly, breaking the pretense that they were focused on the film. "That I'm just using you, or that I'll tire of you eventually." Kelly turned to face him, drawing her knees up to her chest. "I know, and my father will tell the board that my judgment is compromised, that I'm letting personal feelings affect business decisions." She nodded, her expression solemn. "That seems likely." John shifted closer, moving the popcorn to the coffee table. "I need you to know that none of that matters to me. The company, my parents' approval, I'd give it all up in a heartbeat before. I'd give up what we're building here." "You don't mean that," Kelly said gently. "Horton Industries is your legacy, your children's birthright." "Some legacies aren't worth the cost," John replied. I've spent 4 years rebuilding a life for myself. And the twins, after losing Sarah. What good is a company if we're not happy? What good is wealth if it comes with conditions on who we can love? Kelly reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. We'll find a way through this. Together. The sudden crash of thunder directly overhead made them both jump, and at that moment, the lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely, plunging the house into darkness. Perfect timing, John muttered, fumbling for his phone to use as a flashlight. The generator should kick in. Another boom of thunder shook the house, and from upstairs came a sound that made both of their hearts stop, terrified screaming. "Twins!" Kelly gasped, already on her feet. John's confusion lasted only a split second before realization dawned. They must have come home early. Vanessa has a key. They raced upstairs, guided by the dim light of John's phone and the continuing screams coming from the twins' bedroom. When they burst through the door, they found Emily and Ethan huddled together in Emily's bed, clutching each other and sobbing in terror as another crash of thunder rattled the windows. Hey, it's okay," John soothed, rushing to sit on the edge of the bed. "It's just a storm." "Daddy!" Ethan cried, launching himself into his father's arms. "The sky is angry!" Emily reached for Kelly with equal desperation. "Mama Kelly, we're scared." Kelly gathered the little girl close, stroking her hair. "Shh, it's all right. Daddy and I are here now." "Why are you home so early?" John asked, rocking Ethan gently. "We thought you were with Aunt Vanessa." "The movie, theater lost power," came Vanessa's voice from the doorway. She stood holding a flashlight, her expression apologetic. "I tried calling, but the lines must be down. The twins were so frightened by the storm, I thought it best to bring them home." "You did the right thing," Kelly assured her. "Thank you for getting them back safely." Vanessa's gaze moved between John and Kelly, a knowing smile playing at her lips. "I'll head out now that they're with you. Better get home before the roads flood." After Vanessa left, another deafening crash of thunder sent the twins into fresh fits of crying. "Make it stop!" Emily wailed, burrowing deeper into Kelly's embrace. "The storm will pass soon," Kelly promised, though the howling wind suggested otherwise. "In the meantime, how about we make it into an adventure?" The children looked at her dubiously through their tears. "We'll build a fort," Kelly continued, her voice warm with enthusiasm, "right here on the bed, with all the pillows and blankets. It will be like a safe little cave where the thunder can't get us," John caught on immediately, "and we can tell stories and sing songs until we fall asleep." "All of us?" Ethan asked hopefully. "You too, Daddy?" "All of us," John confirmed. "One big family sleepover." The word family hung in the air, significant in a way it hadn't been before. Kelly's eyes met John's over the twins' heads, a silent question in them that he answered with a smile and a nod. They spent the next 20 minutes constructing an elaborate fort, using the bed as a foundation, draping sheets over chairs and securing them with books. John found battery-operated lanterns in the emergency kit, which cast a warm, comforting glow inside their fabric cave. Pillows and stuffed animals created a nest in the middle where they all settled, the twins between John and Kelly. "Tell us a story, Mama Kelly," Emily requested, her fear forgotten in the coziness of their creation. "What kind of story would you like?" Kelly asked, smiling as Ethan's head drooped sleepily against her arm. "A love story," Emily decided, surprising. "Both adults, like in the princess books." Kelly glanced at John, who raised an eyebrow in amusement. "A love story it is," she agreed. "Once upon a time, there was a princess who lived in a far-off land. As Kelly wove a tale of a princess who crossed oceans to help a sad king and his 2 children, John watched her face in the soft lantern light, mesmerized by the animation in her expression, the tenderness in her voice. The twins hung on every word, their eyes growing heavier as the story progressed, until finally both were asleep, curled against Kelly like puppies seeking warmth. "That was some story," John whispered when she finished. careful not to wake the children, especially the part where the princess helped the king remember how to laugh again. Kelly blushed. It was just a fairy tale. Was it? John asked softly. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but within their makeshift fort, a different kind of electricity crackled between them. Careful not to disturb the sleeping twins, John reached across, his fingers brushing Kelly's cheek. "I meant what I said earlier," he murmured. "I'm falling in love with you, Kelly Spiner, and I don't care who knows it, not my parents, not the board, not anyone." Kelly turned her face to press a kiss against his palm. "I love you too, John Horton," she whispered back. "I've tried to remember my place, but my heart wouldn't listen." "Your place is here," John said firmly, "with us, if that's what you want." Kelly looked down at the sleeping children, then back to John. "More than anything," she confessed. In the dim light of their shelter, surrounded by the innocent sleep of the twins they both loved, John and Kelly sealed their declaration with a kiss that bridged worlds, his of privilege and loss, hers of sacrifice and hope. The storm outside seemed to fade away, leaving only the four of them in this perfect, fragile moment of newfound family. As they pulled apart, Emily stirred slightly between them, murmuring in her sleep before settling again. Kelly smiled, brushing a golden curl from the little girl's forehead. "We should sleep too," she whispered. "Tomorrow will bring its own storms to weather." John nodded, understanding she meant more than just the weather. Between his mother's lunch invitation and the looming board meeting, challenges awaited them on all sides. But for now, in this magical fort they'd built together, none of that mattered. "Whatever comes," he promised, "we face it together." Kelly extended her hand across the sleeping children, and John took it, their fingers interlacing in a silent pledge. As the real storm gradually subsided outside, they drifted to sleep, still holding hands, their newly acknowledged love creating a shelter far stronger than any made of sheets and chairs, a sanctuary of the heart where all four of them could finally, truly heal. In the morning, John woke first, momentarily disoriented by the fabric walls surrounding him and the weight of Ethan sprawled across his chest. The events of the previous night came flooding back. The storm, the fort, and most importantly, the words he and Kelly had finally spoken aloud. "I love you." 3 words he'd thought he might never say again after Sarah died, yet they had felt so right, so true when spoken to Kelly. He turned his head carefully, finding Kelly still asleep, Emily curled against her side. In the soft morning light filtering through the sheets, they looked like a Renaissance painting, maternal love captured in the protective curve of Kelly's arm around Emily, in the peaceful trust of the child's face against her shoulder. John felt a swell of emotion, so powerful it nearly overwhelmed him. This was his family now, not a replacement for what he'd lost, but something new and precious that had grown from the ashes of his grief. Sarah would always be the twins' mother, his first love, but Kelly was their future. As if sensing his gaze, Kelly's eyes fluttered open, immediately finding his. A soft smile spread across her face, shy yet radiant with the newfound acknowledgement between them. "Good morning," she whispered. "Good morning," he whispered back, wishing he could reach across to touch her but unwilling to disturb the sleeping twins. They lay in comfortable silence for a few minutes, simply absorbing the perfection of the moment, the peaceful breathing of the children, the morning light, the intimacy of waking up together for the first time, even if it was in a makeshift fort with 2 small bodies between them. "No regrets?" John asked softly, suddenly needing to be sure that last night's declarations hadn't been influenced by the storm's drama or the emotional vulnerability of comforting the twins. Kelly's eyes held his, clear and certain. "Not one," she promised. "You?" Only that it took me so long to tell you how I feel, John replied. We've wasted so much time. Not wasted, Kelly corrected gently. We needed that time to heal, to grow, to be sure. For the twins' sake, and for our own. As always, her wisdom humbled him. Kelly understood instinctively what had taken him years to learn, that love couldn't be rushed, that healing had its own timeline, that some things were worth waiting. For Ethan stirred then, his eyes opening and immediately widening with delight at finding himself still in the fort. "It didn't disappear!" he exclaimed, sitting up so suddenly he nearly headbutted John. Emily woke at her brother's voice, her reaction equally enthusiastic. "We all slept together, like real camping." The peaceful moment between the adults gave way to the exuberant energy of two 4-year-olds who had just discovered that waking up in a blanket fort was possibly the best thing ever. As Kelly helped Emily out of the tangle of blankets, and John pretended to search for Ethan's missing sock, which was of course on his hand, where he'd deliberately hidden it, they exchanged glances of shared amusement and affection. Whatever challenges the day might bring, Eleanor Horton's lunch invitation, the board's potential resistance, the complexities of blending their worlds, they would face them with the strength they had found in each other and in the love of these two remarkable children who had brought them together. For now, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Chapter 7. The Call Home. Autumn painted the Horton estate in brilliant shades of orange and gold, a perfect backdrop for the happiness that had bloomed within its walls. In the 3 months since John and Kelly had confessed their feelings, they had carefully navigated their changing relationship while maintaining stability for the twins. The children had accepted the subtle shift with the easy adaptability of youth, delighted to see more affection between the two adults they loved most in the world. Kelly's lunch with Eleanor Horton had been civil but frosty with John's mother, making thinly veiled suggestions about Kelly's options beyond being a nanny. Kelly had maintained her dignity throughout, neither apologizing for her feelings nor rising to Eleanor's bait. Her quiet strength had only deepened John's admiration for her. The board meeting had similarly failed to intimidate John. When several members had raised concerns about his personal life affecting the company's image, John had calmly presented Horton Industries' record profits under his leadership, then reminded them that his grandfather had built the company on the principle of judging people by their character rather than their background. The implied threat of his resignation had effectively silenced further opposition. On this particular Sunday morning, John watched from the kitchen doorway as Kelly taught the twins to make Jamaican coconut bread, her laughter mingling with theirs. As flour dusted all three of their faces, he marveled at how naturally they had become a family, how right it felt to see Kelly with his children, not replacing Sarah, but creating something new and beautiful alongside her memory. "Can we take some to Grandma and Grandpa?" Emily asked, carefully spreading coconut onto the dough as Kelly had shown her. "Maybe it will make them not mad anymore." A shadow passed over Kelly's face, but she recovered quickly. "That's a very sweet thought, Em. Food has a way of bringing people together." "They're not mad at you, sweetheart," John said, stepping into the kitchen. "Sometimes grown-ups just need time to adjust to changes." The twins seemed satisfied with this explanation, returning their attention to the bread-making with characteristic enthusiasm. John moved to Kelly's side, discreetly squeezing her hand. "You okay?" he murmured. She nodded, though concern lingered. In her eyes, "I just hate that they feel caught in the middle. Children are so sensitive to tensions between adults they love." "My parents will come around," John assured her, wishing he believed it himself. In truth, relations with his family had deteriorated further. His parents now refused to visit the house, insisting instead that John bring the twins to Connecticut. Without Kelly, an arrangement he had firmly rejected. "They're missing so much," Kelly said sadly, watching Ethan meticulously line up coconut shreds on his portion of dough. "These amazing little people growing up right before our eyes." John was about to respond when Kelly's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her expression brightening. "It's my mother. I've been trying to reach her all week." She wiped her hands and stepped into the hallway to take the call, leaving John to supervise the twins' increasingly creative approach to bread decoration. After several minutes, however, he noticed that Kelly hadn't returned. Asking the twins to continue carefully, he went to check on her. He found her in the living room, clutching the phone to her chest, her face ashen. "Kelly? What's wrong?" She looked up at him with eyes swimming in tears. "It's my mother," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's arranged a marriage for me in Jamaica." John felt as if the floor had dropped from beneath his feet. "What? How can she? You're an adult, she can't just—" "It's not like that," Kelly interrupted, her accent thickening with emotion. "In my culture, parents often help arrange suitable matches. She's been talking with the family of Michael Wilson. We grew up together in Kingston. His father owns a successful business there." "But you're here," John said, struggling to comprehend. "You're with us, with me." Kelly's tears spilled over. "She expects me to return home next month. The engagement ceremony is already being planned." Her voice broke. "John, she's very ill, worse than she's been letting on. The doctors say—" She couldn't finish the sentence. John crossed the room in 2 strides, pulling Kelly into his arms as she began to sob in earnest. "It's okay," he murmured into her hair, though nothing felt okay at all. "We'll figure this out. She said she wants to see me settled before—" Kelly pulled back enough to look into his face, her expression tormented. "She's sacrificed everything for me. Worked 2 jobs after my father died. Went without medicine, sometimes so my siblings could have school supplies. How can I say no to her dying wish?" A cold knot formed in John's stomach. "Are you saying you're considering this arrangement?" "I don't know," Kelly confessed, fresh tears falling. "I love you, John. I love the twins, but my mother, she's all alone except for my younger siblings. She's been the anchor of our family. I owe her everything." Before John could respond, Emily appeared in the doorway, her small face concerned. "Mama Kelly, why are you crying?" Kelly quickly wiped her tears, forcing a smile. "I just got some news from my family in Jamaica, sweetheart. My mother isn't feeling well." Emily crossed to them, wrapping her arms around Kelly's waist. "Is she going to heaven like my first mommy?" The innocent question shattered what remained of Kelly's composure. She knelt to embrace Emily properly, her shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. "I hope not, honey. Not for a long, long time." John watched, his heart breaking for Kelly's impossible position, even as fear gripped him at the thought of losing her. The twins had already lost one mother. He couldn't bear to see them lose another. And he had only just found love again after thinking it impossible. The idea of Kelly returning to Jamaica, marrying someone else. "Why don't you help Ethan finish the bread?" he suggested gently to Emily. "Mama Kelly and I need to talk about grown-up things for a few minutes." When Emily had reluctantly returned to the kitchen, John guided Kelly to the sofa. "Tell me everything your mother said," he prompted, taking her hands in his. Kelly took a shuddering breath. "She said she's been diagnosed with advanced kidney disease. The diabetes has damaged them beyond repair. She needs dialysis, but the rural clinic near our home can't provide it consistently." She looked down at their joined hands. "Michael's family has connections at the hospital in Kingston. They can get her the care she needs." Understanding dawned, bitter and cold. "So this marriage isn't just about tradition. It's about securing medical care for your mother." Kelly nodded miserably. She didn't say it outright, but yes, the Wilsons are influential. Michael's father sits on the hospital board. There are other ways to get your mother care, John said, his mind racing. I can arrange for specialists. For treatment in the States, it's not just the medical care, Kelly interrupted gently. It's what she wants before she couldn't finish the thought. In our culture, seeing your children settled is everything. My mother wants to know I'll be taken care of, that I'll have family around me when she's gone. You have family. Here, John insisted, squeezing her hands. Me, the twins. We're your family too. Kelly's eyes filled with fresh tears. I know, but my mother doesn't see it that way. To her, you're my employer, not my... She trailed off. Not your what? John pressed, suddenly desperate to hear her say it. Future, Kelly whispered. She doesn't see you as my future. The word hung between them, laden with all they had begun to imagine together, but had not yet spoken aloud. John had been thinking about their future too, had even gone so far as to look at engagement rings, though he'd planned to wait until the twins' adjustment to their relationship was more complete. When is she expecting you to return? He asked. After a long moment. 3 weeks, Kelly replied, her voice hollow with dread. The engagement ceremony is scheduled for the first weekend in November. John felt as if he were drowning, clawing desperately for air. 3 weeks, 21 days, to convince Kelly to stay, to find a solution for her mother's health, to fight for the life they had begun to build together. We'll figure this out, he promised again, gathering her back into his arms, trying to infuse the words with a confidence he didn't feel. Together. Kelly held onto him tightly, her tears soaking into his shirt. Neither spoke the fear that pulsed between them, that sometimes love, no matter how profound, wasn't enough to overcome the complex web of family obligations, cultural expectations, and the debts of the heart that could pull two people apart despite their deepest wishes to remain together. Chapter 8. Fighting for Love. The ticking clock seemed to echo through the Horton mansion, counting down the days until Kelly's departure. John threw himself into finding a solution with the same intensity he applied to his most challenging business problems, working late, into the night researching medical options for Kelly's mother and making calls to specialists across the country. During the day, he maintained a brave face for the twins, who remained blissfully unaware of the potential upheaval awaiting them. Kelly moved through her days in a fog of conflicting emotions. Love for John and the twins, pulling her in one direction, duty to her ailing mother tugging her in another. She began preparing the children for her absence without explicitly telling them she might not return, introducing them to their new weekend nanny and creating detailed schedules of their routines. One evening, as Kelly put away laundry in the twins' room, Emily looked up from her coloring book with innocent curiosity. "Are you going on vacation to see your mommy?" Kelly's hands stilled on the small folded shirts. "Yes, sweetheart. I need to visit her because she's not feeling well." Emily nodded sagely. When people are sick, they need extra love. She returned to her coloring before adding, "But don't stay too long, okay? Daddy gets sad when you're not here." The simple observation pierced Kelly's heart. She sat heavily on the edge of Emily's bed, overcome by the magnitude of the choice. Before her, these children, who had already lost one mother, might soon lose another maternal figure. And John, her sweet, loving John, would once again be left to pick up the pieces of a broken family. Desperate to find a compromise, Kelly had called her mother daily, trying to explain her situation, the love she'd found, the family she'd become part of. But Amara Spina remained unmoved, her responses growing increasingly weak as her health deteriorated. "A man who truly loves you would make you his wife, not his employee," she had said during their last conversation, her voice faint, but her conviction strong. "The Wilson boy has respected our ways, sought my blessing. What has this American Done except keep you as his children's caretaker? The question haunted Kelly. Though she knew Amara didn't understand the complexity of her relationship with John, the words stung with a grain of truth. They hadn't discussed marriage, hadn't defined their future beyond the immediate present. Was it because John still hesitated to fully commit to her? Was she just a convenient solution for his broken family? Meanwhile, John faced his own battles. His parents had escalated their opposition, threatening to challenge his leadership of Horton Industries if he continued his relationship with Kelly. Though the board had been neutralized for now, Robert Horton had begun reaching out to major shareholders, sowing seeds of doubt about his son's judgment. "You're throwing away everything your grandfather built," Robert had shouted during their last confrontation. "And for what? A nanny from Jamaica who's probably after your money." John had ended the call immediately, rage coursing through him at his father's prejudice, but the argument had solidified his resolve. The company, his parents' approval, his standing in society, none of it mattered compared to the family he and Kelly had created together. With just 10 days remaining, before Kelly's scheduled departure, John called a family meeting with his sister and parents at Vanessa's neutral apartment. "I've asked you here because I want to make myself absolutely clear," John began, standing tall in his sister's living room while his parents watched with guarded expressions. "I'm in love with Kelly Spiner. She is the best thing that has happened to me and the twins since Sarah died, and I will not lose her because of your outdated prejudices." Eleanor's lips thinned with disapproval. "It's not about prejudice, John. It's about what's appropriate, what's best for the children and the company." "The twins adore her," John countered. "They call her Mama Kelly. She's brought joy back into their lives, and mine." "How is that not what's best for them?" "They're confused," Robert insisted. "They've attached to her because she's their caretaker. That's natural, but it doesn't make her a suitable mother figure." "Sarah wouldn't want—" Eleanor began. "Don't," John interrupted, his voice dangerously low. "Don't presume to tell me what Sarah would want. Sarah made me promise on her deathbed to find love again, to give our children a mother's love. That's exactly what I'm doing." Vanessa, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. "Mom, Dad, I've seen them together. Kelly is wonderful with the twins, and she makes John happier than he's been in years. Why can't you be happy for them?" Robert ignored his daughter, focusing instead on John. "You're making a mistake that will cost you everything. The board—" "I don't care about the board," John said firmly. "If necessary, I'll step down as CEO. The twins' trust funds are secure, and I have enough personal wealth to ensure they'll never want for anything. What they need, what I need, is Kelly." Eleanor gasped. "You can't mean that. Horton Industries has been in our family for 3 generations. And it may continue to be," John replied, "but not at the expense of my family's happiness." He took a deep breath. "I'm going to ask Kelly to marry me." The pronouncement landed like a bomb in the elegant living room. Robert's face reddened, dangerously, while Eleanor pressed a hand to her chest as if physically pained. "You can't be serious," she whispered. "I've never been more serious about anything in my life," John said. "I'm not asking for your blessing, though I'd welcome it. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Kelly's mother is ill and wants her to return to Jamaica for an arranged marriage. I intend to give her a reason to stay." Vanessa broke the tense silence with a small whoop of joy, rushing forward to hug her brother. "It's about time," she exclaimed. "Sarah would be so happy for you." John hugged her back, grateful for her support. When they separated, he faced his parents again. "You have a choice to make. You can accept Kelly as my wife and the twins' stepmother, or you can continue this opposition and lose your relationship with all of us. I won't subject Kelly or my children to your disapproval any longer. You're asking us to accept this arrangement or never see our grandchildren again?" Eleanor asked incredulously. I'm asking you to respect my choice of partner, John corrected, to treat Kelly with the dignity and acceptance she deserves, to be the loving, supportive parents and grandparents I know you can be. His voice softened slightly. She's a remarkable woman, if you'd only get to know her. Robert and Eleanor exchanged glances, decades of marriage allowing a silent communication between them. Finally, Robert spoke, his voice gruff but less combative. You're really willing to give up the company for her? In a heartbeat, John confirmed without hesitation. Another long silence stretched between them before Eleanor sighed deeply. Your grandfather would have hated this, she said, but the fight had gone out of her voice. But he also believed in standing by family no matter what. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was the first crack in their opposition, a small opening that might with time widen into something more welcoming. Thank you, John said simply. As he left Vanessa's apartment, a weight lifted from his shoulders. He hadn't won his parents' blessing, but he had made his position clear. Now came the more difficult challenge, convincing Kelly to stay, to choose the family they had built together over the obligations pulling her back to Jamaica. He drove to a small jewelry store in the city, one far from the high-end establishments. His family typically patronized. There, he found what he'd been searching for, a ring as unique and beautiful as the woman he loved. Not a traditional diamond solitaire, but a deep amber stone, the exact color of Kelly's eyes, surrounded by small diamonds set in rose gold. It wasn't the most expensive ring in the case, but it was undeniably the most perfect. That evening, as Kelly tucked the twins into bed, John prepared the patio where they had shared so many meaningful conversations. He arranged candles around Sarah's garden, knowing that acknowledging her place in their story was essential to their future. On the stone bench, Sarah's favorite spot, he placed a photo album he had carefully assembled, filled with pictures of Kelly with the twins, interspersed with heartfelt notes from both children expressing their love for her. When Kelly finally came downstairs, her eyes red-rimmed from the emotional strain of these past weeks, she stopped short at the sight of John waiting by the back door. "What's all this?" she asked, noticing the soft glow of candlelight through the windows. "I need to show you something," John said, taking her hand and leading her outside. Kelly gasped when she saw the garden transformed by dozens of flickering candles. "John, before you say anything," he began, guiding her to the bench, "I want you to look at this." He handed her the photo album, watching as emotion played across her face while she turned the pages. Tears filled her eyes as she read Emily's crooked writing, "I love you because you sing songs when I'm scared." And Ethan's careful letters, "You make the best pancakes and give the best hugs." "They love you so much," John said softly. "We all do." Kelly closed the album, pressing it to her chest. "I love them too, and you, but my mother—" "I know," John acknowledged. "That's why I've been working on a solution." He took her hands in his. "I've arranged for your mother to receive treatment at the best kidney specialist in New York. A private medical transport will bring her here next week, along with any family members she wants to accompany her." Kelly's eyes widened in shock. "John, I can't accept. The cost alone is nothing compared to what I'd lose if you left." John finished for her. He took a deep breath and dropped to one knee, still holding her hands. "Kelly Spiner, you brought life and love back into our home when I thought they were gone forever. You healed my children's hearts, and mine. I don't want you as an employee or even as a girlfriend." He reached into his pocket and withdrew the ring box. "I want you as my wife, my partner, the mother of my children." Kelly's free hand flew to her mouth as John opened the box, revealing the amber stone that seemed to capture the essence of her. Spirit Will you marry me, Kelly? Will you choose this family we've built together? Will you let me help your mother so you don't have to choose between us and her? Tears streamed down Kelly's face as she looked from the ring to John's hopeful expression. John, She hesitated, torn between overwhelming joy and lingering doubt. What about your parents? The company? I don't want to be the reason you lose everything. You're not taking anything from me, John assured her. You're giving me everything that matters. Love, family, a second chance at happiness. The rest is just details. Kelly touched the ring with trembling fingers, the amber stone catching the candlelight. It's the color of my eyes, she whispered. In wonder. I noticed them the first day you walked into our lives, John confessed. They're the windows to the most beautiful soul I've ever known. A sob escaped Kelly as the last of her resistance crumbled. Yes, she breathed, pulling John to his feet and into her arms. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to all of it. As their lips met in a kiss that promised forever, the candles around Sarah's garden flickered in a sudden gentle breeze, as if offering a blessing from beyond, one mother watching over the family she had loved, approving of the new mother who would carry her legacy of love forward. Chapter 9. Airport Goodbye. Despite John's heartfelt proposal and meticulous plans to bring Kelly's mother to New York for treatment, the situation grew more complicated in the days that followed. Amara Spiner's condition deteriorated rapidly, and her doctors advised against the long journey to America. The medical transport John had arranged stood ready, but Amara steadfastly refused to leave her home and the support network of her close-knit community. My mother is Jamaican to her core, Kelly explained through tears as she and John sat in his study late one night. Her home, her church, her friends, they're her strength. Taking her away from them now might break her spirit, even if it helped her body. John's heart sank as he recognized the impossible choice before Kelly. You need to go to her, he said, the words painful but necessary. Kelly nodded, her engagement ring catching the lamplight as she wiped away tears. Just for a while, until she's stabilized. I can explain everything in person, make her understand about us. She looked up at him, her eyes pleading. You understand, don't you? Of course I do, John assured her, pulling her close. Family is everything. I would never ask you to turn your back on your mother when she needs you most. They agreed that Kelly would travel to Jamaica for 2 weeks, long enough to be with her mother, introduce the idea of John properly, and gently break the news about the cancelled arrangement with Michael Wilson. The twins were told she was going to help her sick mother, with promises of her quick return. The dreadful day of separation arrived too soon. John arranged for a private car to take them to JFK Airport, the twins unusually subdued in their car seats. Emily clutched the Jamaican doll Kelly had given her when she first joined their household, while Ethan repeatedly asked when exactly 14 days would be over. Remember our calendar, Kelly reminded him gently from the front seat. You'll mark off each day with the special stickers, and before you know it, I'll be back. Promise? Ethan asked, his voice small and uncertain. I promise, Kelly said, turning to meet his eyes. Nothing could keep me away from you for long. John watched the exchange with a heaviness in his chest. Though he tried to remain optimistic, a nagging fear persisted. What if Amara convinced Kelly to stay? What if the Wilson family pressured her? What if her cultural obligations proved stronger than the bonds she'd formed here? They arrived at the international terminal too quickly. John helped Kelly with her luggage while the twins held hands, unusually clingy with each other as if sharing strength. Inside, the bustle of travelers rushing to destinations unknown created a chaotic backdrop to their private heartbreak. After checking in, Kelly knelt before the twins for a proper goodbye. I need you to be extra good for Daddy while I'm gone, she said, straightening Emily's little cardigan, and help Miss Vanessa when she comes to stay with you. I don't want Miss Vanessa, Emily said, bottom lip trembling. I want you. I know, sweet girl. Kelly's voice caught as she pulled Emily into a hug. And I'll be back before you know it. We'll video chat every day, I promise. Ethan stood stoically until his turn, then launched himself into Kelly's arms. With such force, he nearly knocked her over. Don't forget us, he whispered, his face buried in her neck. Never, Kelly vowed, holding him tightly. You're in my heart forever. John watched, his own emotions threatening to overwhelm him. The scene was painfully reminiscent of other goodbyes. Sarah leaving for the hospital to deliver the twins, not knowing she would never return home. He pushed the thought away forcefully. This was different. Kelly would come back. Finally, it was time. The security line waited, and Kelly's flight would begin boarding soon. She rose, composed herself, and turned to John. 2 weeks, she said, touching her engagement ring like a talisman. 2 weeks, he echoed, pulling her into his arms. They held each other tightly, neither wanting to be the first to let go. Call me when you land. I will. She looked up at him, memorizing his face. I love you, John Horton. I love you too, Kelly Spina, soon to be Horton. Their kiss was gentle but laden with promise, a bridge across the ocean that would soon separate them. When they finally parted, Kelly picked up her carry-on bag and turned toward security, shoulders squared with determination. She had taken only 3 steps when Ethan broke away from John's grip. Mama Kelly, wait, he cried, his little voice carrying. Across the bustling terminal, Kelly turned back, and in that instant both twins ran to her, crying in earnest now. Emily clutched her legs while Ethan wrapped his arms around her waist, both children sobbing as if their hearts were breaking. Please, don't go, Emily begged. Please don't leave us like Mommy did. The innocent plea shattered the careful composure Kelly had maintained. She dropped to her knees again, gathering both children close as her own tears fell freely. Oh, my darlings, I'm coming back. I promise you with all my heart. John approached slowly, his chest tight with emotion. Seeing the 3 people he loved most in the world clinging to each other, he made a sudden decision. Kelly, he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. This isn't right. The twins need you. I need you. He knelt beside them, creating a circle of shared grief and love. Let me come with you to Jamaica. Kelly looked up in surprise. What? But the company, your responsibilities, none of it matters more than this, John said firmly. We should face this together, as a family. Let me meet your mother. Explain to her in person how much we love you. For a moment, hope flickered in Kelly's eyes, but reality quickly dampened it. The twins can't miss school, and your mother is still recovering from her surgery. There's no one who could... Then I'll go back with you, Ethan declared with the simple logic of a child. I'll tell your mommy that you're our mommy too now. Me too, Emily added, wiping her nose on her sleeve. We can help her get better with extra love. A sad smile crossed Kelly's face as she smoothed both children's hair. Your hearts are so big and beautiful, but your place is here with your daddy. She looked at John, her expression resolute, though tears still shimmered in her eyes. And I need to do this alone. My mother needs to see that I'm making this choice from strength, not being persuaded. John recognized the wisdom in her words, though it pained him to admit it. You're right, he conceded. But know that we're with you in spirit every moment. Kelly nodded, gathering her courage. She kissed each twin on the forehead, whispering private words of love to them. Then she stood, squaring her shoulders again. 2 weeks, she repeated, more to herself than to them. As she turned to leave once more, John suddenly called out, Kelly! She paused, looking back at the man she loved and the children who had become hers in every way that mattered. Will you be the mother of my kids? John asked, his voice carrying clearly across the terminal. Not just their nanny, not just my wife someday, their mother, officially, completely, forever. The question, so simple yet so profound, seemed to hang in the air between them. Travelers moved around their tableau, some casting curious glances, others smiling at what appeared to be a romantic movie moment come to life. Kelly stood frozen, one hand still on the handle of her suitcase, the other pressed to her heart. The twins looked up at their father, then back to Kelly, their little faces alight with hope despite their tears. Kelly began, her voice failing her as emotion overwhelmed her once more. The airport announcement system crackled to life. Final boarding call for Jamaica Airways Flight 207 to Kingston. All passengers should proceed immediately to Gate 32. Kelly looked helplessly from the departure sign to the family before her, caught between two worlds, two loves, two impossible choices. "Go," John said softly, understanding in his eyes. "Talk to your mother. We'll be here waiting when you return." With one last anguished look at her future family, Kelly turned and hurried towards security, forcing herself not to look back. If she did, she knew she wouldn't have the strength to leave. John gathered the twins against him, all three watching until Kelly's familiar form disappeared into the crowd. "She'll come back," he promised them, and himself. "She loves us too much not to come back." But as they walked slowly from the terminal, Emily's small voice carried the fear they all felt. "Mommy loved us too, but she never came back." John had no answer for that painful truth, only a faith in the love he and Kelly had found, a love he had to believe was strong enough to bridge oceans, cultures, and family obligations. As they drove away from the airport, the sky darkened with gathering storm clouds, as if the heavens themselves mourned their separation. Chapter 10. Love Prevails. The days following Kelly's departure stretched endlessly for John and the twins. Though they marked the calendar faithfully each night, time seemed to crawl at an agonizing pace. Kelly called daily as promised, her face on the video screen both a comfort and a painful reminder of her absence. The twins brightened during these calls, chattering about school and showing her their artwork, but afterward fell into an uncharacteristic quietness that broke John's heart. In Jamaica, Kelly faced her own struggles. Her mother's condition had stabilized somewhat, but Amara remained weak, her once vibrant spirit diminished by illness. The Wilson family had been coldly polite when Kelly explained the cancelled arrangement, their disappointment evident, though they maintained a respectful distance out of deference to Amara's health. On her 5th day in Kingston, Kelly finally gathered the courage to show her mother the engagement ring and properly explain about John. "He asked you to marry him?" Amara asked weakly from her bed, studying the amber stone with narrowed eyes. "Yes, Mama," Kelly replied, sitting beside her mother, and taking her thin hand. "John loves me, and I love him and his children. We've become a family." Amara was silent for a long moment, her gaze drifting to the family photographs on her bedside table. "And what of Michael? His family has been good to us." "I know, Mama, but I can't marry a man I don't love." "Love," Amara echoed, something like disappointment in her voice. "In my day, we built love through marriage. It grew with time, with children, with shared struggle." She looked directly at Kelly. "This American, is he a good man? Does he respect you? Or does he see you as a convenient mother for his children and nothing more?" The question struck at Kelly's deepest insecurities. "He's a good man, Mama. The best I've known since Papa. He values me for who I am." "Then why did he not come with you? Why are you here alone, defending your choice?" Kelly hadn't expected this challenge. "He offered to come. I was the one who thought it better to speak to you first, woman to woman." Amara studied her daughter's face carefully. "Show me these children you love so much." Kelly eagerly pulled out her phone, showing her mother photographs and videos of Emily and Ethan. Amara watched silently as her daughter's face transformed while speaking of the twins. A glow of maternal love evident in every word, every gesture. You are already their mother in your heart, Amara observed quietly when Kelly finished. Yes, Kelly admitted. I tried not to be. I always honored their birth mother's memory, but love found a way. Amara sighed deeply, closing her eyes as if the conversation had exhausted her. I need to rest now. We will speak more tomorrow. For the next week, Kelly divided her time between caring for her mother and video calls with John and the twins. Each day, Amara asked more questions about John, about his family, about the life Kelly had built in America. Though she never explicitly stated her opinion, Kelly sensed her mother's resistance softening through her thoughtful silence and contemplative nods. Meanwhile, in New York, John faced challenges of his own. His parents, though less openly hostile since his ultimatum, remained cool toward the idea of Kelly as their daughter-in-law. The board had called another emergency meeting, citing concerns about stability and leadership, a thinly veiled reference to John's personal life. On the 10th day of Kelly's absence, as John prepared for the confrontational board meeting, his phone rang with a call from Jamaica. His heart leapt at Kelly's name on the screen. "Kelly, is everything all right?" Her voice came through with a slight tremor. "John, my mother wants to speak with you, on video. Can you talk now?" John glanced at his watch. The board would have to wait. Of course. Moments later, he found himself looking into the weathered face of Amara Spina. Despite her illness, dignity radiated from her posture, from the careful way she'd arranged her headscarf, from the direct gaze that assessed him through the screen. "Mr. Horton," she greeted him formally, "I believe you wish to marry my daughter." "Yes, Mrs. Spina," John replied with equal formality. "I love Kelly very much, and so do my children." "Love," Amara said, the same note of skepticism in her voice that Kelly had described. "In my experience, Americans speak of love easily, but commit with difficulty." "I understand your concern," John acknowledged, "but my commitment to Kelly is absolute. She has brought healing and joy to our lives when we thought it was gone forever." Amara's gaze sharpened. "My daughter tells me your first wife died." "Yes, Sarah died giving birth to our twins," John confirmed, the familiar ache of that loss present but no longer debilitating. "And now you would have my daughter raise your children, take on your name, leave her family and culture behind?" John considered his answer carefully, sensing the importance of this moment. "I would have Kelly be exactly who she is, the remarkable woman your sacrifices helped create. She has taught my children about Jamaica, about your traditions. They know your family songs. They love coconut bread." He smiled slightly. "If anything, she has brought her culture to us, enriched our lives with it." Something softened in Amara's expression. "And if I fall more ill, if I need her here, then we would come to you," John said without hesitation. "All of us. Family supports family, Mrs. Spina. Kelly would never have to choose between her mother and her husband." Amara was silent for a long moment, studying John's face. Then, with a slight nod, she said, "I wish to see these children who call my daughter mother." John called for the twins, who rushed to the screen with excited greetings when they saw Kelly. When he introduced them to Amara, explaining she was Kelly's mother, they immediately showered her with questions and observations. "You look like Mama Kelly around the eyes," Emily declared. "She said you make the best rice and peas in all Jamaica." "Are you feeling better?" Ethan asked with genuine concern. "Mama Kelly went to help you get strong again." "Mama Kelly," Amara repeated softly, watching the interaction between her daughter and these children who so clearly adored her. After several minutes of conversation, she asked to speak to John alone again. When the twins had reluctantly left, Amara fixed John with a penetrating gaze. "My daughter deserves a man who will stand beside her always, who will honor her as an equal, not as a servant in his home." I couldn't agree more, John said sincerely. Kelly is my partner in every sense, my equal in all things. Amara nodded slowly. Then come to Jamaica, Mr. Horton. Bring your children. Meet my family. Show us that your intentions go beyond words. Hope surged in John's chest. When? Now, Amara said simply. Today. If your commitment is real, prove it. John didn't hesitate. We'll be on the next flight. 24 hours later, John stood with the twins at Sangster International Airport. In Montego Bay, scanning the crowd for Kelly's face, he had called an emergency family meeting before leaving, informing his parents and the board that he was taking personal leave effective immediately. If you force the issue while I'm gone, he had told the stunned board members, my resignation letter is already prepared. Family comes first, always. Now, as they waited in the humid Jamaican air, the twins bouncing with excitement, John felt a profound sense of rightness. This was where they needed to be, proving their love, fighting for their family. Daddy, look! Emily suddenly cried, pointing across the terminal. It's Mama Kelly! John's heart leapt at the sight of Kelly pushing through the crowd, her face alight with joy and disbelief. The twins broke free, running toward her with delighted screams. She knelt to catch them, wrapping them in a fierce embrace as tears streamed down her face. John approached more slowly, savoring the reunion, the completion he felt at seeing Kelly with their children again. When she looked up at him over the twins' heads, the love in her eyes took his breath away. You came, she whispered as he reached them. You actually came. Of course we did, John said, helping her to her feet and pulling her into his arms. You're our family. We go where you go. Their kiss was interrupted by Emily tugging at Kelly's dress. Can we meet your mommy now? We brought her presents to make her feel better. Kelly laughed through her tears, lifting Emily into her arms. Yes, sweetheart, she's very excited to meet you all properly. The week that followed transformed everything. The Horton family was embraced by Kelly's extended family and community, invited into homes for meals, welcomed at church services, included in evening gatherings where stories and songs were shared beneath star-filled skies. John watched his children absorb Kelly's culture firsthand, saw them form bonds with her siblings and cousins, observed them falling in love with this piece of Kelly's heart just as he was. Most importantly, he witnessed the growing respect between Kelly and Amara as her mother saw firsthand the family they had created together. Though Amara remained weak, her spirit seemed to strengthen each day she spent with her daughter and the twins, who treated her with a grandchild's unrestrained affection. On their final evening in Jamaica, as the twins slept exhausted from a day at the beach, Amara called John and Kelly to her bedside. I have been stubborn, she admitted, taking one of each of their hands. I wanted for Kelly what I thought was best, a marriage within her culture, close to her family, with a man whose background I understood. She looked at John with new respect. But I see now that love does not follow such narrow paths. Kelly's eyes filled with tears. Does that mean? It means, Amara said, squeezing their joined hands, that you have my blessing. She turned to John. Take care of my daughter, Mr. Horton, and bring my grandchildren to visit their Jamaican family often. I promise, John vowed, his own vision blurring with emotion. And please, call me John. Amara smiled, the first true smile they had seen from her. Go now. I believe you have a wedding to plan. 6 months later, on a perfect spring day, the gardens of the Horton estate burst with flowers as chairs were arranged in neat rows facing an arbor woven with Sarah's roses and tropical blooms flown in from Jamaica. Guests gathered from both worlds, John's business associates and childhood friends mingling with Kelly's family and community members who had traveled from Kingston for the occasion. In a remarkable turn of events, Eleanor and Robert Horton had not only accepted the inevitable, but had worked diligently to make amends. arranging for Amara's medical treatment at New York's finest hospital, and personally welcoming Kelly's family when they arrived for the wedding. Though their journey toward full acceptance remained a work in progress, the sincere effort spoke volumes about their changing hearts. Inside the house, Kelly stood before a mirror in a wedding dress that combined American elegance with Jamaican influences, ivory silk overlaid with delicate lace in patterns that echoed Caribbean artistry. Beside her, Emily twirled in her flower girl dress while Vanessa made final adjustments to Kelly's veil. "The twins want to see you before the ceremony," Vanessa said, smiling at her soon-to-be sister-in-law. "Something about a special surprise." Moments later, Ethan entered in his tiny tuxedo, carrying a flat package wrapped in silver paper. "This is from me and Emily and Daddy," he announced proudly, "but mostly from Mommy Sarah." Kelly accepted the gift with trembling hands, carefully unwrapping it to reveal a framed photograph of Sarah, smiling radiantly with newborn twins in her arms. Inscribed on the frame were words that took Kelly's breath away. "Two mothers, one. Family, boundless love. Daddy said Mommy Sarah would be happy you're marrying him," Emily explained, suddenly serious beyond her years. "That she sent you to us." Unable to speak through her tears, Kelly gathered both children into a fierce embrace. When she finally found her voice, she whispered, "I will treasure this always, and I promise to honor your mother's memory every day of our lives." The ceremony itself was a beautiful blend of traditions, Christian vows interspersed with Jamaican customs, music that bridged cultures, readings that spoke to the universal language of love. When the twins presented the rings, their faces solemn with the importance of their task, there wasn't a dry eye among the guests. As John and Kelly exchanged their vows beneath the flower-laden arbor, the spring breeze carried the scent of Sarah's roses around them, a sweet reminder of the promise made and kept, of love that had transcended loss to find new expression. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. Before he could finish with the traditional invitation to kiss, the twins rushed forward, wrapping their arms around both John and Kelly. "We now pronounce us a family," Emily announced. Looking at the laughing guests with complete certainty, John lifted his daughter into his arms, while Kelly held Ethan, completing the circle they had been building since that first day she walked into their lives. "A family," John agreed, leaning in to kiss his wife for the first time. Later that night, after the celebration had ended and the twins were asleep beneath the watchful gaze of their Jamaican grandmother, John led Kelly to their bedroom, now transformed with touches of both their tastes, his classic furnishings complemented by the vibrant colors and artistry she had brought into his life. "Happy?" he asked, drawing her into his arms. "Completely," Kelly answered, her amber eyes reflecting the soft lamplight as she smiled up at her husband. "This journey wasn't easy, but it led us exactly where we were meant to be." As their lips met in a passionate kiss that held the promise of all their tomorrows, love, patient, enduring, transformative love, wrapped around them like a blessing, healing final wounds, building unbreakable bridges, and uniting two worlds in the perfect harmony of family, finally, beautifully, completely whole.